as bad as you may think that audition sounds to you today, it really did the trick for you, because within 2 weeks, the WHBQ program director called you.
He did. Gordon Lawhead called me on the phone, and I was on the air that night, and he said, I want you to come over here. We want to have an interview with you about coming to work at WHBQ. This was only 2 weeks after me sending the thing in the mail. And I thought, my God, it was an out-of-body experience. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven. Well, sure enough, my dad, I didn't have a car, and my dad drove me over there. And I still remember the first time I walked through those doors at WHBQ. They were on the mezzanine floor at the Chiska Hotel in downtown Memphis, Tennessee, South Main Street. And I sat there waiting to be interviewed by my eventual mentor, Bill Grumbles, and the station manager, John Clegren. The station was owned by Harding College in Searcy, Arkansas. And so the general manager, John Clegren, was very religious oriented, which is no problem with that. But I did the interview, I got the job, and came back to Jackson, gave them 2 weeks notice, and in 3 weeks, I was on the air doing Clock Watchers at WHBQ Radio.
And you even had your own theme.
Yeah. I remember when Pam's, remember Pam's?
Sure.
Down in Dallas. They went down there and had, that was in the days when stations were getting their individual jingles made. It was new in those days,
Sure.
You know, the mid-'50s. And as part of the jingle package, they had themes made for all of the DJs. And mine, I was Winky Martindale, still Winky Martindale there. And this was my Clock Watchers theme song.
Well, let's listen.
Hi there, Winky. Here comes Wink Martindale on the Clock Watchers show.
Well, you can't imagine, unless you're a young kid who's just getting into radio and you have your own theme song with your own name being sung. That was really something in 1954, 1955.
Now, within months of beginning Clock Watchers on radio, you got your first TV show, Wink Martindale of the Mars Patrol on WHBQ TV. And that had to be a real kick to have your own TV show.
Well, yeah, you know, I just wanted to be on the radio. And within a year, Channel 13, WHBQ TV, went on the air with their television station. And Mark Forrester, our program director, and Bill Grumbles, my mentor, came to me and said, we would like for you to do a television show for kids. And we'll call it Wink Martindale of the Mars Patrol. Would you like to do that? And I said, where do I sign? And so I went on the air doing this show with 6 little Mars guards every day. We had a set with seats made out of airplane seats, the metal seats.
Yeah.
And they were graduated up. And it looked like, hopefully it looked like a space set. And we would blast off after having our Bosco and milk, and we'd segue into the old, remember the old B movies and the Rocky Jones, Space Ranger?
Yeah.
We'd do about 5 minutes of that because we didn't have a lot of film on that. So we'd have to be very careful about how much we played. So we'd go into about 5 minutes of that, and then I'd come back and interview the kids again up until, you know, it was a 30-minute show. And they always left with a super beam signal ray, which I still have one on my wall at home. We'd give them all a super beam signal ray to take home with them. And interviewing kids, it's like Art Linkletter said, kids say the darndest things. And they really do. The only one that I remember that said something that kind of caught me off guard was, I need to go pee-pee. And I said, no problem. But I said, we can't stop. You just go over there and we'll be here when you get back. But interviewing kids really is an education. It really taught me how to handle interviews to a degree better than I ever had before. But that was Wink Martindale of the Mars Patrol. And I was going to University of Memphis, which was Memphis State at the time. And I was already married with my first wife and had 2 kids. And I was taking 16 hours at Memphis State. I was doing the morning show and doing the afternoon show, Mars Patrol. And during that period of time, as you can imagine, I was pretty popular at Memphis State because I was on, quote, television. And I was so popular that, are you ready for this? They had a popularity contest for the sophomores that year, Mr. and Miss Fabulous. And I won the title of Mr. Fabulous. And Mr. Cleghorn, my general manager, I guess was sensing that my head was getting a little big for my body. I still have the letter that he sent me. It dated March 28th, 1955. Dear Winston, my real name, I make it a practice to congratulate other people when they receive an extraordinary honor. But if you don't mind taking advice from an old man, the secret of continuation of your popularity is to remember three things. One, if you want people to like you, you have to have a genuine love for the human race. Two, the only way to avoid arrogance that comes with outstanding success is to remember you are God's creature, and what you've achieved is due to Him, not your own accomplishments. If you can remain an humble and a surrendered instrument in His hands, there's no limit to the good you can do. And third, he said, if you forget you're God's creature, you could fall a lot further and a lot faster than you can ever climb. It's a pleasure to have you on the station. Sincerely, John H. Cleghorn, General Manager, WHBQ.
Wow, I love
Isn't that
that
nice?
letter. Yeah.
And of course, you can imagine why I kept that all these years.
We're talking about the early 50s. That's a time when music was beginning to change in Memphis, and Memphis was the center of those changes. And you had a front row seat.
For sure.
Now talk to us about the infamous night in July 1954. Something happened that changed music like we've never known it. Things would never be the same. And Wink, you were there when it all happened, in person.
In the mornings on Clock Watchers, I was still playing Perry Como and Eddie Fisher and Joe Stafford and K-Star, Wheel of Fortune, things like that. At night, we had a wild man on the air from 9 to midnight. His name was Dewey Phillips. Dewey Phillips was the first DJ to ever play an Elvis Presley record. He was playing in those days, and we're talking about 1953-54, he was playing black music for white kids. Teenagers were just getting into the rhythm and blues category of music, more so than the vanilla music that we were playing in the morning that I mentioned earlier. Well, I happened to be at the radio station this particular hot summer night in July of 1954. I was showing some of my football-playing buddies from Jackson around the radio station, and I heard the commotion going on in Dewey Phillips' studio. It was around 9:15 because he came on at 9 o'clock. And I excused myself, and I went into the control room, and I said, Dewey, what's happening? The switchboard lit up. And Sam Phillips, founder of Sun Records, had walked in with an acetate that he had cut that afternoon. Wasn't even a record yet, it was just an acetate. And he wanted to, Dewey could test a record, and you could find out within one evening whether or not in Memphis that record was a hit or not. That was the power he had, because he had 65% of the audience at night. And he played That's All Right Mama by this truck driver named Elvis Presley. And he played it 7 times in a row. He just couldn't get enough of it. And Sam happened to have Gladys and Vernon's telephone number. They lived in low-rent housing in East Memphis called Lauderdale Courts. And he gave me the telephone number, and I was designated to call and find out where Elvis was, because Dewey wanted him to come to the radio station. So I got on the phone, Miss Presley answered. They were listening to the radio, and they heard the excitement, and they were thrilled. I said, Mrs. Presley, where's Elvis? Dewey wants him to come down. And Mrs. Presley said, well, he was so nervous about his record being played, he went to see a double feature over at the Suzors on Decatur Street. He went to see a double feature Western. And he said, we'll get in our truck and we'll go get him and bring him down to WHBQ. So they walked up and down the dark aisles. Elvis was sitting in the middle of the theater all by himself watching this double feature. They whispered to him about the excitement. They snuck out of the theater, got into the truck, went down South Main Street, as Dewey used to call it, the magazine floor of the Chiska Hotel. And Elvis went in, sat down in front of a microphone, and Dewey said, I want to interview you. So he started talking to Elvis and asking him all the questions about his days at Humes High School and how he happened to make the record. And of course, Sam was in on that conversation too, Sam Phillips. And after the conversation was all over and Elvis was ready to leave, he said, well, Mr. Phillips, I thought you were going to interview me. And Dewey said, son, I just did. He had no idea that the microphone was open. And he said many times in later interviews and in many books, had he known that he was being interviewed live on the air, he wouldn't have been able to talk because he was so withdrawn in those days. So I met him that night. He became my friend and was my friend until the day he died. And That's All Right Mama, of course, went on to great popularity regionally and was later put out on RCA as part of the Sun Records chapter. And the following Thursday, they went in and recorded Blue Moon of Kentucky to go on the flip side. So in a week, the record was out, and it was a tremendous hit. He went on to do it on Louisiana Hayride, and that was the beginning of Presley Mania, a hot July night in 1954. And for whatever reason, God placed me there to be witness to this special night. And music was never the same, as you know, after that. And that's that story.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. Okay, yeah, really. All right, the year was 1956 when American Bandstand was very popular. And Wink, you were the Dick Clark of Memphis.
Well, every city had its Dick Clark in those days. Because
Well, yeah.
American Bandstand was so big,
Sure.
and every city had to have its dance party, and I happened to be the one.
And
in
you
Memphis.
did. You had your own version of Bandstand called Top 10 Dance Party. It was on Saturdays. And as Elvis was churning out hit after hit after hit, he came home to Memphis one summer after filming his first movie, Love Me Tender. And one of the first stops was on your dance party.
Yeah, it was the first time that Elvis had ever been interviewed when the interview was actually recorded. We did not have videotape in 1956 at Channel 13. So somebody suggested, this guy's getting so big, you should have a photographer come in and video this.
Yeah.
So a guy named Bob Zimmerman came in and set up his 16 millimeter camera right in front of the jukebox where I used to do my interviews, and that's what that picture's from back there. And I did a 25-minute interview with Elvis Presley, and he was already bigger than baked bread and getting bigger every day. And I had cue cards slapped all over the walls because I had so many questions I wanted to ask him. And in fact, at one point, I asked him a question, and he said, well, there's the answer on that card over there. You don't have to ask me. I said, Elvis. But we went on and finished that interview. I remember the funniest thing that came out of that interview. I said, Elvis, when you were going to Humes High School, did you have any idea that any of this was going to be happening to you? He said, Wink, I never expected to get out of Humes High School, which was true. And that interview was recorded. I loaned it out to a friend, the master copy, which is stupid, and I never got it back. But I got back a few segments of it. And I'm going to show you the last couple of minutes now of that interview with Elvis Presley in July of 1956 on Top 10 Dance Party.
No, I mean, there's a lot of stories started, but...
Well, now that brings us around to something else. And we're getting around to the end pretty soon here. Some people, and we discussed this the other day.
And about this Judy Spreckles, that I've been getting a lot of publicity with Judy Spreckles. I got started when Judy gave me a ring out in Las Vegas. She gave me this ring here, and what ring there?
It is a pretty big ring, isn't it? Would you show it to us close up there?
Sure.
It's pretty big and
Hurry up,
a beautiful ring, too.
She gave me this. No, somebody started it that she was wearing my ring and I was wearing her ring. We were wearing each other's rings.
That's the way it goes. How How about the big show at Rustwood Park scheduled for July 4th? Bob Johnson surely, I know, wants us to mention that, and we want to mention it. I believe the proceeds from this show go to the Cynthia Milk Fund. Is that right, Elvis?
Yes, sir, that's right. And I'd like to say let's see, what would I like to say? I'd like to say that we have a diamond ring that we're going to have as a door prize. It's my initial ring. I've had it for some time, and it has 14 diamonds in it. And we're going to give it away at the door as a door prize.
I see.
And everything.
And all the proceeds from this particular show, this is July 4th at Rustwood Park. Elvis is going to be there. He's going to sing and play. His band will be there. Many other stars will be there, too. And we will certainly want you to watch Bob Johnson's column in the Memphis Press Cemetery, watch all the publicity on it, and get your tickets in advance. Elvis Presley, I want to thank you again because we know you're a busy man, and thanks a lot for coming by and seeing us at the dance party and saying hello to all your friends here in Memphis and the Mid-South. And anytime you're in town and want to come by, we certainly will welcome you.
Well, thank you very much, Wink, and I'll see you again.
Okay, thanks a lot. Elvis Presley.
I always thought that was pretty fun. Anytime,
Look at that. I love that.
anytime you're in town, Elvis, feel free to come by. Of course, anytime. By the way, I failed to mention a while ago that of that first night when he was discovered, when Presley Mania started in '54, I'm the only living person of the 6 people in the control room that night who were there. Everybody else has passed on.
Oh, those are great early memories of the king of rock and roll. Thanks for joining us. You know, I can already feel the excitement building for our next Hollywood Media Professional Celebrity Showcase.